Okay, so before we get into it, let me tell you a little bit about what See It, Be It is. There's a chance you haven't heard of it before. So Cannes Lions have this program called See It, Be It, which similarly to 3%, are really driven to change the ratio. So since 2011, they've been identifying 15 to 20 women who they believe are future leaders of this industry. And then they gather them up, take them to Cannes Lions during the week of festivals, and immerse them in this accelerated leadership program. In 2016, Carrie and Krystle were part, and in 2017, I was part of the class. So we're gonna just tell you about what we got from that, but also real talk you about after you go from such an illuminating process, what does it look like and how do you build on that? So from that, I'm handing over to you, sis.
Yeah, so we're breaking it up into 3 sections. I'm going to be See It, Carrie's going to be It, and Tahirah's going to bring it.
Yeah, while I awkwardly get on the chair.
So growing up, I looked up to a lot of strong female leaders, and perhaps there was no better proof of this than my obsession with this TV show. Do you guys know who this is? Okay. So for those of you who don't, this is Xena, warrior princess. And she went about saving ancient Greece from hordes of bad guy armies and giants that wanted to stomp on villages and, and dragons that wanted to burn down villages. She wanted to save the villages. And she was confidence and leadership embodied for me. She was brave and kind. She was a risk taker, but she was also strategic. She was really considerate. She always asked the opinions of the villagers before she saved them, and she was maybe also a little bit crazy. And I may or may not have written her a 4-page letter, single space, telling her how awesome I thought she was and how she was my hero. Cut to a few years later, and for somebody who's admired such strong female leaders, I really did select the wrong industry to be a part of. No matter where I look, all I see are men. All my instructors at copywriting school, men. Every portfolio show I went to, I was always sitting across from a man showing him my book. Every job interview I had was with a man. In fact, I've never been interviewed by a female creative director to this day. I was really, really disheartened. All I wanted, all I needed was for somebody.
Show me the
women.
That's it, brother, but you got to yell that shit. Show me the
Women.
I need to feel you, Jerry. Show me the
Women.
Jerry, you better yell. Show me the
Women! Voice of an angel. And See It, Be It did. For 1 week in Cannes, I was surrounded by the Xenas of the advertising world. They were strong, they were brave, they were risk takers, they were advice givers. And I was Julie Andrews, except the south of France was alive with the sound of equality. And I had a great week, but then it was the last day of the program, and I was feeling really down, actually. I was worried about losing sight of the See It part of the program. And I was talking to Madonna Badger about it. It's a casual photo captured in film. And I was explaining to her how I was really worried about this loss of visibility. And she gave me a piece of advice that has changed my career professionally, but also personally. She looked me in the eyes, and just as an aside, when Madonna Badger looks you in the eyes, and I'm sure some of you have had conversations with her, it's kind of like what I would imagine it would feel like to have Hillary Clinton and Beyonce look you in the eye at the exact same time. And she said that if when you go home, you do not see yourself reflected in those around you, perhaps it's time you became the mirror. And I was like, okay, Yoda, can you unpack that a little bit for me? And she very simply said that perhaps it was time I began to see myself as a leader I was so desperately searching for. And in order to help me do this, she asked me to think of a time in my life when I had been a leader, but I hadn't known it, when I had affected positive change in some way, but I just wasn't aware of it. And this is the story that came to mind. Do you guys mind if I tell you a quick story? I'm going to tell it anyway. So it's the summer of 1999, and I'm 17 years old, and I've somehow landed a job as a camp counselor at a sleepaway basketball camp. And I say somehow because I have little to no experience working with children. I didn't babysit growing up. I didn't know CPR. My brother and I had a turtle once, and we lost it in the park. But I'm ecstatic to have this job because I think it means that I'm going to get to play basketball all day, every day. Those dreams come crashing down very quickly when, on the first day of camp, 12 sets of parents dropped their 12-year-old daughters off to be in my care. And listen, these 12-year-old girls were like normal, everyday 12-year-old girls in that they were batshit crazy. So one camper had convinced within the first 5 minutes of camp to the rest of the campers that deodorant didn't work. And a solve for this was air freshener. So that after having been away from the cabin for like 5 minutes, I returned to like Niagara Falls Maiden of the Mist, except vanilla lavender scented, because they had all doused themselves in air freshener. The nights proved a problem. There was a camper, I guess you can describe it as like sleep screamed, and 2 words repeated over and over and over again, and they were, gimme 5, gimme 5, gimme 5, gimme 5, like just to a crescendo. And then there was a camper who, she didn't really like to sit or stand. She more liked to perch. I'm just gonna do it for you, kind of like this. And I returned to the cabin one afternoon to find her perched on the roof in protest at having to be at camp. She wanted to go home. She was having a terrible time. She thought she was really, really bad at basketball. So I'm at a loss as to what to do with these girls. But I got to thinking that not too long ago, I had had my own brand of 12-year-old crazy. And in the moment, I just needed somebody to be kind and considerate and maybe lean into my crazy a little bit. And so that's what I did. I tried air freshener as deodorant. It does not work, just in case you're wondering. I made all the campers give high fives before going to bed. And I convinced the percher that she should stay at camp because she was actually naturally talented at basketball because her go-to position was already defense. Listen, I'm no Michelle Obama. I didn't make change at a global level. But I did make change for those 12-year-old girls in the summer of 1999. But in that moment, I didn't consider myself a leader. I didn't even consider myself a leader when I got a letter from the percher telling me what an amazing time at camp she had, how she couldn't wait to come back next year, and how she wanted to be a camp counselor one day. I wrote her back and told her it was a terrible idea. Madonna Badger, by drumming up this simple, small, stored away memory, helped me see myself in a new light. No, seriously. The See It, Be It program helped me see myself as a leader and helped me realize that my experiences and my leadership style, even though it might be a little bit crazy, could be part of the change that this industry so desperately needed and still needs today. Coming home from camp is actually a lot like coming home from Cannes. Definitely need a shower, both times. But I was changed in some way. And the difference was that when I got home from camp, I couldn't see that change. But when I got home from Cannes, I could see it. I'm going to leave you guys with one of my favorite ads, and it very fittingly used to hang on my bedroom wall next to my Xena poster. I had one. And I would ask you guys all today, tomorrow, and a week from now, try and just see yourself through somebody else's eyes, even just for a minute, because you never know what kind of hero or leader you're going to find. And don't worry, you guys, my mom in Brampton, Ontario, Canada, had a real fun time going through all my stuff, trying to find this ad so she could take a picture of it with her iPad so I could show you guys. Does a hero know she's a hero if no one tells her? This is a Nike ad, by the way, 90s. Do you know a hero no one else knows? A hero doesn't have to save a busload of kids from certain disaster or score the winning point in the big game. A hero can be anyone who inspires you, anyone you look up to, anyone who cheers you on, makes you better than you were before, just as they made themselves better than they were before. Do you know a hero? Tell her, and then tell everyone. Thank you, guys. Oh, a cherry.
They're dangerous. Okay, hello everyone. I guess it's my turn now. So my name is Carrie Dunn. I was a part of See It, Be It in 2016. And that summer, when I went to Cannes, my life changed. And no, it wasn't just the yachts and the rosé. Those were nice, though. My life changed because I met Katty Kay. Now, Katty Kay is a BBC anchor and author of The Confidence Code. It's a study on confidence differences between men and women in the workplace. So she literally wrote the book on confidence and came to talk with us about it. And it's really just inherently about how men are naturally very confident and women, not so much. The main highlights from her talk are this. Men will apply for a job or push for a promotion when they are 60% qualified for it. Women, on the other hand, will apply for a job or push for a promotion when they are 100% qualified for it. Which, in and of itself, is a doozy. That's a huge difference. But there's a kicker. Because women underestimate their own abilities by 30%. Which means, if you do the math, that we women need to think we are 130% qualified before we will even consider applying for a job. Have you ever been 130% certain about anything in your life?
No.
And this whole thing just creates this cycle of men applying for jobs and pushing for promotions that they're underqualified for, and women failing to pursue the jobs that they're overqualified for. And that, for me, was a game changer, because it made me really stop and evaluate the way that I was seeing and valuing myself in the workplace. Because honestly, historically, circle of trust, we're all friends here, I have naturally always been the kind of person who just seeks and/or desperately needs approval from authority figures. It started when I was little and it just stuck with me. I always just thought if I kept my head down, outworked everybody else, stayed quiet, that the world, the system around me, the people above me would just see it and reward it, and that would be how I would climb the ladder. Obviously, it doesn't always work out that way, especially in a creative field. So I started working on my own confidence because I was starting to feel like I was just hitting walls at work. So after meeting Katty Kay, I started building my confidence. It was not easy, and it definitely did not happen overnight. It was a day in and day out practice. I had to work on first the external things that I did, so making sure that I spoke up, I stood by my ideas, I pushed for the things that I deserved, especially when it would have been a lot easier to just be quiet. And it was in the internal things that I did. So I had to make sure that I owned my strengths, I was a lot kinder on my perceived deficiencies, and that I just truly believed in the value that I brought to any room that I walked in. And now, 2 years later, the change is immense. I have become a much more confident person. And in building my own confidence, I took back that ownership of my own worth and value. Because I was no longer controlled by outside forces, so that meant that I was the only person responsible for my career path. I've become braver, a better creative, and honestly, a much happier person. And no, all of those walls that I was hitting at work did not come crumbling down. But they didn't scare me so much, and I started to be able to find my own ways around them. And that was the story of how I built my confidence. Or at least I thought it was. And then this year, actually, something really interesting happened. I was working at 72andSunny, and I was tasked with coming up with a fun internal video to celebrate the women on my team for International Women's Day. Super fun dream project, right? Have some fun. There's no clients. Celebrate some women, get out. It's gonna be great. So I came up with a really simple idea. What makes you a boss? The idea was to pose this question to the women on my team and capture their very different responses in order to celebrate the very different strengths and personalities that they all had. Basically showing there's no wrong way to be a woman in advertising or a woman in leadership, and that we can all kind of just do it in our own unique style. Super fun idea, right? So, really excited, I send this out to my team. And the response was horrible. Every single woman, when you ask this question, clams up. Every single woman, from the young juniors who are just starting out to the GCDs, the literal bosses. None of them had a response. None of them wanted to respond. Honestly, none of them really wanted anything to do with me and this apparently horrible question I was asking them. So, super fascinated, I started to catalog their reactions. Uncomfortable. This was far and away the most common response. No woman, when you ask them what makes you a boss, feels confident, comfortable, or even really good about things. I don't want to brag. Every woman seemed to think that if she just came out and said her strengths, even though I'd asked her to, it would be seen as unappealing or too aggressive. My strengths are my listening skills and my respect for others, but those aren't the qualities of a boss. To which I said, do you really want to work for someone who won't listen and doesn't respect their people? So I realized I had to change this. So I sat down with every single girl on the team, and I had an interview with them where I just helped them find the thing that makes them a boss. And without fail, it only took 60 seconds. Really, it took 60 seconds. They just needed that moment where I sat down, looked them in the eyes, and was like, hey, it's okay, I'm not gonna judge you right now if you say some of your own strengths. And then they'd say something like, it's not a big deal, but... And I was like, that's it, like that's your thing. That's the thing that makes you a boss. And a light went off in their eyes as they realized I was right. So, in the end, I put each and every one of them in front of a camera and I made them answer this question. And they owned it. They owned the things that make them a boss. And once they saw that disparity between their skill set and their value and their confidence, each of them wanted so badly to start closing that gap. And I think that next time, when they're asked about their own strengths, they're going to own them without needing encouragement or permission from me or anyone else. And this whole thing made me realize that this is the real reason why I built my confidence. Yes, for myself, but so that I could then also go and turn and help countless other women find theirs. Because you can't lift people up if you don't believe in your own strength. And once you do find your confidence, you become an unstoppable force for helping other women find theirs. So, I ask all of you, what makes you a boss? Don't shrink away from it. Don't be shy about it. Own it. Own it and empower each other to do the same.
Woo. Thanks.
Woo!
None of you guys can see it, but there's a countdown clock right in front of us.
Yeah.
And it's like we're Jack Bauer in 24. It's so intense.
So I'm gonna ignore it and just have a chat with you guys. All right, so just like Carrie and Krystle, I left See It Be It like galvanized and ready, and you guys will all feel this by the end of by the time we finish these 2 days, right? You're just gonna be ready to like go and take on the world and stuff. And then you have this moment afterwards where you're like, oh shit, I actually have to put into practice these things that I've taken with me. And I always think in any of these circumstances, certainly for me, there are two types of learning that we do, right? You do here are the like real obvious overt takeaways. And then you have the more clandestine, quiet things that keep coming up again and again, and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to listen to this now. And so that was what happened with me after See It Be It. Learning how to bring it sort of took on a different flavor. And I had to learn how to bring self-care to the table if I was gonna figure out how to be here and do this even. Yeah. Because I'll talk a little bit about how I showed up to See It Be It, right? So aside from like doing my best to do as good as I can in my agency, I was doing the most. I was like the consummate side project hustler, right? I had a podcast, I had a pop-up, I even put on a local production of the Vagina Monologues. Like, I was doing the most. And it was great. I think most ambitious people, all of you guys are ambitious in this room, so you understand that feeling of like, if I'm not doing everything, I'm obviously doing nothing in it. And while I brought all of that to the table, I also was exhausted. I was neglecting, I was so busy doing this that I wasn't holding the mirror up as per Madonna Badger, you know? Like, I was like totally distracting myself and became the master of deflection. And so I got to Cannes, and on the final day, we do this thing which is like speed mentoring, right? So you have a mentor for like 10 minutes. They're in the C-suite, so if they were here, they'd be in the leadership room right now, and they just talk to you for a little while. So one of mine, Zoe Brown, who is a CCO at UK TV, we met and I tried to do my deflection thing where I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this and this and this and this. And she saw through the everything, right? And she goes, cool, but what are you doing for you? And I'm there like, okay, but I'm doing this, and look, shiny thing, lady, come on, just look at the shiny thing. And she's like, cool, you're not gonna be able to be a leader unless you look after yourself first. You just won't, because like, you know, I remember she used, in a less cliche way, she said something around like being the CEO of your own body and stuff, or of your own being first. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And I remember, because I was so actively in my deflection, I said, okay, cool, okay. But this started to factor in, because almost immediately after, I realized, you know, I was at the precipice of a huge career leap, and I was also on the brink of burnout. And it was like, okay, I sort of self-inflicted that. So I had to learn radical self-care. Otherwise, I was not going to be able to hit the goals that I've had, which is, you know, being a Black woman who makes it to the top of this industry. So in order to not crash and burn, I've come up with a couple of like, you know, we're not going to call them hard and fast rules, okay? Just like things that I do, I'm going to share them with you to sort of self-care and maintain in this industry. Where's her quote? There we go. So self-care, I think, as well, is a little bit of an intangible thing at the moment. You know, like there's a whole industry on wellness, and it can be a little frou-frou, right? You're kind of like, I've just done this yoga class, so how come I don't feel like everything's fixed? I've left and I'm still stressed and shit. You know, so I think it's really important for us to unpack what self-care actually is. And my style guru, Tracy Ellis Ross, had this awesome quote that I felt like hit the nail so awesomely on the head. So self-care does not mean going to a spa. It's learning to say no. It's knowing yourself so you can make choices that are an expression of you. That is self-care. So step one for that for me is keep it real, keep it kind. So I'm looking around the room, I see a bunch of awesome women, a bunch of awesome men and people of color and stuff. Listen, we know that bringing it is not just like doing your best work. Bringing it is like finding your confidence. It's like being assertive, but not too assertive that you seem like a bitch. And it's all the rest of it. And by the end of it, we're fucking tired. Like, we are tired. And I think we have to be honest about that. And also, though, on the same double-edged sword, we have to be kind to ourselves with that. So it's like, keep it real. Yeah, it's tough, and we're allowed to have a moment to pay reverence to that. But we have to treat ourselves like we're our own best friends and be like, okay, because I guarantee you, every single person in this room is probably not appreciating how well they're actually doing, and you're probably all being pretty tough on yourself. So keep it real, keep it kind. Boundaries are boss. So this one, I always used to go, boundaries are beautiful. Boundaries aren't beautiful, they're necessary. They're a necessary form of self-preservation. And let me be clear on what boundaries are, to me at least, right? Like, Boundaries don't mean that you're gonna say no to like the odd late night, or you're gonna say no to like going all in for the team, right? What boundaries are going, okay, actually, I maybe do need to take that vacation, and I'm gonna be really firm with myself as well as with the people around me that I need it. Boundaries are going, actually, this thing doesn't align with my belief system and doesn't serve me, so I'm going to say no to it, and that's okay. Boundaries are accepting that no is a complete sentence. And with that, find your safe space. As Carrie said, we're all friends in here, obviously. But obviously, if you are armoring up to show up every day, then you're not necessarily always feeling your safest, for want of a better word. And at See It Be It, during my year, Karen Kaplan, who is the CEO of Hill Holiday, spoke to us in the room about finding a personal board of directors. For her, she said it wasn't necessarily people she worked immediately with. It was other peers in the industry who she could find safe space in, who she could be vulnerable with, who she could have those conversations that she maybe couldn't always have, right? It's imperative that you find those people, particularly if you're in the first 5 years of being in this industry. Having a space is imperative. I was really fortunate because, year and a half after See It Be It, I have 15 women from all over the world in a WhatsApp group, and we just, whatever we're going through, we're doing it in the group too, Also as well, find your physical safe space too. Like that corner that you can just go and be you and do you and turn off your phone, turn off your emails, Bring it full. So I really need to clarify what I mean by this one, okay? So, juice can't flow from an empty cup, sis and bros. Honestly, I think oftentimes we are trying to do everything and do it all and stuff, and don't even realize when we are at the breaking point, right? So, quite simply, if you need to exit to go and recharge your battery, do it. And I think this is something that could be like a little micro task for you guys over this next couple of days. We're in this awesome, amazing space, where you're going to be connecting with people all day. And it is amazing, but it's also a lot. So if you need to go take 10 minutes to walk by the waterfront for a little bit and just gather so that you can go back into the room as your fullest, most amazing self, then do so. Don't be afraid of doing that. And bring it big. So this one might be one of the most controversial ones and most challenging, right? Again, as I said, showing up as your full self is tough. However, whenever you're in a space, particularly if you are a person of color, if you are queer, if you are disabled, or if you're any of the others that don't fit you into the boring boxes, then we've been taught that socially we kind of have to chip away at ourselves a little bit to be able to fit into the squares that we may go into. If you find yourself in a space where you're doing that, man, you need to recognize that you're a star. You can't fit in their boxes, right? And anytime I've been in a situation like that professionally, I've left real quick because I've seen what it's done to my self-esteem and all of that stuff. I know there's reasons why you can't always leave your job straight away, but it is something that I think if you ever don't feel like you're able to bring your whole self to the table, you don't need to be there and that space doesn't need you. And you did not come here to work and die. Guys, we need to have fun. This shit is real. We're doing real work. But also, don't take ourselves so seriously. And that, to me, is a fundamental part of self-care, right? It's we cannot die. That's it. So in order to really and truly bring it, find and develop your own set of self-care principles to go by, because you deserve it, and it is going to be the way that you stay and grow in this industry.
Woo!
That's it, guys.
Questions?
Yeah. So the Jack Bauer clock has 4.5 minutes left. So if you have any questions.
Questions about the program itself,
Yeah.
applying for the program. We'll try and do our best to speak on behalf of
Yep.
CAN, knowing that we're not legally allowed to. Agreed. It's okay. It's hard.
It's with the E.
It's an Xena.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah.
You got 50% though, so that's pretty good.
Right.
You're doing it. And
X-
what a beautiful,
XE.
beautiful illustration.
Yeah.
And thank you, sound people, and it
Right.
was great. But yeah, questions? No, other than the Xena.
What makes each of you all a boss?
Oh.
I'll go first because I feel like I trapped us into this.
Yeah.
So I owe it to you too.
Yeah.
I think what makes me a boss is I'm a very good speaker, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the way that I build up other women around me.
For me, I would.
Thanks.
For me, I would say it's my capacity for empathy.
I think that generally I'm a yes and person, which I have to really work on all the time. But whenever I'm in a room with anybody and they say something, even if it's like, let's walk in -40, like, yes, and we could walk for a bit and then take a subway. I always try and like see the next best thing. So yeah, I really do the yes and really well. And I think that that's important as a boss.
Definitely.
Oh, we're at a 0. Wow, time flies.
Whoa, Jack Bauer. Oh, Colton.
We got a heart out.
Hold it.
Okay. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks.